Subscribe my YouTube channel, Blessed Billionaire.
Shalom, my friends. I want to tell you about a man I know. Let's call him Moshe. Moshe drives a 15-year-old Honda Civic. The paint is faded. There's a dent in the passenger door. The interior smells faintly of old coffee. When you see Moshe at the grocery store loading generic brand cereal into his cart, wearing a polo shirt that has seen better days, you would never guess that this man is worth $12 million. You would never guess that he owns 4 rental properties, a diversified stock portfolio, and a small manufacturing business that generates $500,000 a year in profit. Moshe looks poor. And that is exactly why he is rich. Today I want to talk to you about one of the most counterintuitive, most misunderstood, and most powerful principles of wealth building. It is a principle that runs completely contrary to everything you see on social media, everything you see in advertising, everything the world tells you about success. The principle is this: looking poor is not a sign of failure. It is a strategy for freedom. And if you can master this principle, if you can embrace it with the same discipline that our ancestors embraced the commandments, you will build wealth faster, you will live with more peace, and you will protect yourself from the traps that destroy most people who try to get rich. This is not about being cheap. This is not about depriving yourself. This is about understanding the difference between looking rich and being rich. And I promise you, by the end of this conversation, you will see wealth in a completely different way. Let me start with a story from our tradition. In the Talmud, in the Tractate of Shabbat, there is a teaching about a man named Rabbi Elazar ben Charsam. He was one of the wealthiest men in Israel. He owned 1,000 cities and 1,000 ships. But when he went to the study hall, the Beit Midrash, he carried a sack of flour on his shoulder like a common laborer. People didn't recognize him. They thought he was a poor man. One day his servants saw him, and they beat him, thinking he was a vagrant who was trespassing on their master's property. They didn't. Insurance on a Lamborghini is 5 times more expensive than a normal car. It requires premium gas. The tires cost $2,000 to replace. Every service costs $1,500 or more. And if something breaks, you might have to wait months for the parts to arrive from Italy. Suddenly, this free car is costing you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year just to maintain. And you didn't even want to go anywhere in particular. You just wanted people to see you in a Lamborghini. This is called the Diderot effect, named after an 18th century French philosopher named Denis Diderot. He wrote an essay about how a single gift, a beautiful scarlet robe, ruined his life. The robe was so elegant that everything else he owned suddenly looked shabby in comparison. So he replaced his desk, then his chair, then his rug, then his entire wardrobe. He went into debt trying to make his life match the robe. He wrote, "The poor man may take his ease without thinking of appearances, but the rich man is always under a strain." This is the trap. The moment you upgrade one part of your life, everything else feels inadequate. You buy a luxury car, now your house feels too small. You buy a bigger house, now your furniture feels cheap. You buy new furniture, now your clothes feel outdated. It never ends. You are on a treadmill, running faster and faster, spending more and more just to keep up with the image you have created. And the entire time, your wealth is draining away. In the Torah, in the book of Exodus, when the Israelites left Egypt, They were given gold and silver and fine clothing by the Egyptians. They were wealthy. But what did they do with that wealth? They built a golden calf. They used their wealth to create an idol, a false god, something to worship. And it nearly destroyed them. The lesson is clear. Wealth, when misused, becomes an idol. And when you use your wealth to create an image, to build a persona, to show the world how successful you are building a golden portion. But the world teaches the opposite. The world says, "Who is rich? He who looks rich." And so people spend their entire lives chasing the appearance of wealth while never actually building wealth. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you decide to keep a low profile. You drive a used car instead of leasing a new one. You wear simple clothes instead of designer brands. You live in a modest apartment instead of a luxury condo. By making these choices, you save $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year. Now, you could spend that $6,000 on a vacation, on a new TV, on whatever. Or you could invest it. If you invest $6,000 a year into a simple S&P 500 index fund, and you do this for 25 years, and the market returns its historical average of 10% per year, you will have over $500,000. $500,000, just from living modestly and investing the difference. That is the power of looking poor. But it's not just about the money, it's about the freedom. When your expenses are low, you are not chained to a job you hate. You are not stressed about making your car payment. You are not anxious about paying your mortgage. You have options. You have flexibility. You can take risks. You can start a business. You can change careers. You can say no to a toxic boss. This is true wealth. Not the car, not the house, but the freedom to choose how you spend your time. The third reason why looking poor is important is that it attracts the right people into your life and repels the wrong people. Let me tell you a story. When I was in my 20s, I spent some time in a community of very wealthy people. There was a man there, let's call him David. David loved to show off. He wore a gold Rolex. He drove a Porsche. He always wanted to go to the most expensive restaurants, the most exclusive clubs, and he expected everyone around him to keep up. If you went out with David, you were expected to split the bill, even if that bill was $500 for a single night. He prepared a meal for them with his own hands. He treated them with humility and kindness, and because of this, he was blessed. The strangers were angels, and they brought him the news that he would have a son. The lesson is this: when you are humble, when you are modest, you attract blessing. But when you are arrogant, when you show off, you attract envy, jealousy, and false friends. There is also a practical safety reason for keeping a low profile. When you brag about your wealth, when you post pictures of your cars and your watches and your vacations on social media, you make yourself a target. You invite theft, fraud, even kidnapping. This is not paranoia. This is reality. The more visible your wealth, the more vulnerable you are. But when you look poor, you are invisible. You are safe. No one is trying to rob you. No one is trying to scam you. You can move through the world in peace. The fourth reason why looking poor is important is that it teaches you to be grateful for what you already have. and gratitude is the secret to happiness. There is a concept in psychology called the hedonic treadmill. It means that no matter what happens to you, good or bad, you eventually return to your baseline level of happiness. There was a famous study in 1978 where researchers interviewed lottery winners. They found that a few months after winning millions of dollars, these people were no happier than they were before they won. They had adapted to their new level of wealth, and it no longer brought them joy. This is why buying things doesn't make you happy. You buy a new car, you feel great for a week, and then it's just a car. You buy a designer watch, you feel great for a day, and then it's just a watch. The happiness fades, but the debt remains. In our tradition, we have a practice called Mode Ani. Every morning, the moment we wake up, before we do anything else, we say a prayer of gratitude. Earlier, with less money. Here is a simple truth. The less you spend, the less you need. If your lifestyle costs $50,000 a year, you need $1.25 million to retire, based on the 4% rule. But if your lifestyle costs $100,000 a year, you need $2.5 million. That's double. That's years, maybe decades of extra work. When you keep your expenses low, you lower the bar for financial freedom. You don't need to be a multimillionaire to retire. You just need to be disciplined. And every dollar you don't spend on looking rich is a dollar you can invest in being rich. There is a teaching in the Talmud. Who is strong? He who conquers his desires. The world is constantly trying to sell you things you don't need. Advertisers, influencers, your neighbors, your co-workers, they are all sending you the message that you need more, that you need to upgrade, that you need to keep up. But the truly strong person, the truly wealthy person, is the one who can say no, the one who can resist, the one who can live below their means and invest the difference. This is not deprivation. This is strategy. This is wisdom. This is freedom. So, my friends, let me summarize. Looking poor is important for 5 reasons. First, it simplifies your life and frees you from the Diderot effect. Second, it's cheaper, which means you can build wealth faster. Third, it attracts real friends and repels fake ones. Fourth, it teaches you gratitude and breaks the hedonic treadmill. And fifth, it allows you to retire earlier because you need less money to be free. But beyond these practical reasons, there is a deeper spiritual truth. In our tradition, we are taught that this world is a temporary dwelling. We are here for a purpose, and that purpose is not to accumulate possessions. It is to grow, to learn, to serve, to connect with God and with each other. When you spend your life chasing material things, you are missing the point. You are wasting your time on things that will not last, that you cannot take with you, that will not matter in the end. King Solomon, while your neighbors are drowning in debt, watch your stress decrease, while they are chained to jobs they hate. Watch your friendships deepen, while theirs remain superficial. And most importantly, watch your gratitude increase. Because when you stop chasing more, you start appreciating what you have. And that, my friends, is the secret to a rich life. Remember the words of our sages. Who is rich? He who is satisfied with his portion. Be satisfied. Be grateful. Be humble. Look poor. Be rich. Shalom. And may you be blessed with the wisdom to see through the illusions of this world and the courage to live with true wealth. Let me leave you with one final story, a story that brings all of this together. There was a wealthy merchant in our community many years ago. Let's call him Yaakov. Yaakov had built a successful import business. He was making good money, more than enough to live comfortably. But Yaakov had a problem. He was obsessed with what people thought of him. He bought a Mercedes. Then he bought a bigger house. Then he joined an expensive country club. Then he started wearing custom suits. Every year his expenses grew, and even though his income was growing too, he was always just barely keeping up. One day, Yaakov came to see me. He was stressed, exhausted, on the verge of a breakdown. He said, "Rabbi, I'm making more money than I ever dreamed of, but I feel poorer than ever. I'm working 80 hours a week. I can't sleep. My marriage is falling apart. I don't even remember the last time I played with my kids. What am I doing wrong?" I asked him a simple question. "Yaakov, if you lost everything tomorrow, if the business failed, if the house was gone, if the car was repossessed, what would you miss the most?" He thought for a long time, and then tears started rolling down his face. He said, "I would miss my family. I would miss my health. I would miss my peace of mind. I wouldn't miss any of the stuff." "Then why," I asked him, "are you sacrificing your family, your health, and your peace of mind? Poorest are often the richest, because they are free." So I ask you, my friends, what do you want? Do you want to look rich, or do you want to be rich? Do you want the approval of strangers, or do you want the freedom to live life on your terms? Do you want to spend the next 40 years chasing status symbols, or do you want to spend the next 7 years building real wealth and then live the rest of your life in freedom? The choice is yours. But I can tell you from experience, from watching hundreds of people in my community over the decades, the ones who choose to look poor are the ones who end up truly wealthy. Not just financially, but spiritually, emotionally, relationally. They are the ones who sleep well at night. They are the ones whose children respect them. They are the ones who have deep, meaningful friendships. They are the ones who at the end of their lives look back with satisfaction and say, "I lived well." So go now, clean out your closet, sell the things you bought to impress people you don't even like, drive the old car with pride, wear the simple clothes with confidence, live in the modest home with gratitude, and take every dollar you save and invest it in your freedom. And remember, always remember the words of King Solomon. "Better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble with it." Choose the little, choose the simple, choose the humble, and you will find that you have chosen the path to true riches. Shalom, my friends. May you have the courage to look poor and the wisdom to be rich.